Hey everyone, and welcome. Thanks for coming back to join us on the Living Life Naturally podcast. And I have a returning guest with me today whom I'm really excited about sharing stuff with because this is Ciara Foy. She was with us several weeks ago, and we talked quite a bit about perimenopause and menopause, and we're going to continue the journey today. So Keera is a nutritionist, an author, and a women's health and hormone specialist, but she's not your average nutritionist. And she was a former corporate world insider turned entrepreneur, and she intimately understands the health challenges that are faced by high achievers and hustlers. So she's been there battling mid-afternoon crashes. I totally get that. From quick lunch fixes and foggy mornings, after that relaxing with a glass of wine. So her mission is to help ambitious individuals like you and I transform our health and our lives by revealing the direct connection between self-care and peak performance, not just at work, but in every aspect of life. So I am so thrilled to have you back with us, Keera. Welcome today to this episode.
Thank you so much, Lynn. I am excited to dive in. And, we covered quite a few things when we last spoke, but I think there's one in particular that we could really dive deep into that we kind of, glossed over a little bit, which is the role that stress plays and really talk about the specifics about that, what that looks like, what your body thinks is stressful, and why that's such an issue during perimenopause and menopause. Because, at this time in our life, we have to be more conscious of the things that are under our control and have to take more personal responsibility for things in our life, because it's only when we do that we have the power to change. Because if there's no responsibility, then it means that it's out of your, you have zero ability to change it, right? So it's out of your scope. So, stress is one of the things that, I think we mentioned that women get very frustrated with, so very frustrated. I mean, before we started recording, you mentioned something that you were talking to your doctor, said, oh, that's stress related, right?
Right.
But that's not helpful, right? That's not helpful because I don't know how you felt about it, but when I hear something like that, I'm like, oh yeah, it's that thing. And then there's nothing we can do for you. Right?
Right.
Is that how you felt?
Yes, it is. So it's like, okay, so I have this problem, maybe it's stress related. What do I do now?
Yes.
Because we can cope with our stress to a degree, but if it's causing these physical manifestations, then we really have to handle on how to be better at what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And we just have to look, like, I tell people that there is always a next level. Right. So, take myself, for example. I am not perfect. And I've been doing this for 20 years. I have a ton of information. I could just sit and talk for like weeks, like straight. Right. But, if I was dealing with a particular health issue, are there other things that I could add? Are there things that I could do better? Yes. Right? If all of a sudden I found out that I had cancer, would I say to myself, oh, well, I do everything and there's nothing I can do and it's out of my control? No, I would not do that. There are many, many things that I can do. Right? So, and the reason why I say to your audience is that I want you to know that even a, very seasoned professional knows that there's always a next level. Right? So, and really the next level always starts with a higher degree of self-responsibility, as I said. So, and a lot of people get very uncomfortable, and these are uncomfortable conversations that I tend to have with my clients, because a lot of the time they, they, without realizing it, because these are high powered, very successful women who have got to where they are by absolutely pushing themselves and being the best at what they do, right? But, if somebody is sitting in front of me and they're like, well, I can't control, my workload, or I can't control my stress level, I can't control, what I'm eating. The truth is, none of that is true, right?
Right.
Does it mean that you are going to have uncomfortable conversations with other people? Yes, right? And, because a lot of that is about boundaries. So, we have to look at where we are wasting our time, right? So I have a client, and, she's a lawyer, and she went from a busy practice, like somebody else's practice, to her own. And we just had a conversation last week about, things that, like, the next level for her, and the time part came up. And then we had to have a really conversation around, but how much time do you spend scrolling on Instagram? And what do you do when you get up in the morning? And what are you doing before you go to bed at night? And why are you replying to a client at 11 p.m. by email? Right? And so we have to look at these things, because all the women in my practice, they have this idea, this story, that if they do more, if they stay up later, if they reply to that email, then tomorrow will be easier because they've knocked some things off their list. And it's not true, because what you are doing is teaching other people to take advantage of your time. Right. And, if you are being that way, because it all comes back to you, it all comes back to who you're being and self-responsibility, then, that is why you feel the way that you feel, that there is never enough time because you have any boundaries, and you're not protecting your own time, and you're not valuing your own time when you're wasting it on Instagram, for example. Right. Or, so that's a really important thing to look at, right? Is that there's always something different that we can do. And even if you have, a boss, and that doesn't mean that there's nothing you can do, is that so often women don't speak up for themselves. And so we end up creating a lot of our own stress, because if somebody says, hey, can you do this? And, this is the deadline, and you just say yes, even though you know that deadline is actually not doable, that you have a lot on your plate, then, that's also on you, because you have to speak up and speak your truth and have that reverence and respect for yourself to be like, yes, I can do this. And this is how much time it's going to take to get properly. Right.
Yeah.
So that's, a big thing that I see when it comes to stress, because we teach other people how to treat us, right? We do the same with our children. We do the same with our spouses. We do the same with our friends, etc. So if we are feeling like we can't prioritize ourselves, then we have to look at where can we free up space in our lives, right? Where are we saying yes to other people when it's a no for us? And that's a really important one. So, hold that in kind of like, in the back of your mind, because anybody listening, I want you to have this really tough conversation with yourself with a pad of paper, and write down these things that are sucking your time and increasing your stress, right? And really think about what is important in your life. What are your values? Because if you start living from your true values and what's actually important, your whole world will change. Okay. So that's the first part when we are talking about stress. The second part is to understand that stress is not all the things outside of you. It's actually, the majority of the stress is not actually what I just spoke about. It's not your boss or your finances or your kids or your husband. A lot of stress that your body feels is how you're treating her. and you have 100%, control over that, right? So not enough sleep is a stress. Skipping meals is a stress. Pushing yourself too hard in the gym, like endless cardio, is inflammatory and it's a stress, right? And, not eating enough. A lot of women are stuck in this, and this is one of the biggest things that they have to change when, you're going through perimenopause and menopause, is that you are losing muscle mass. And all of the things that you learned, like I'm a child of the 90s. I was born in 76, right? The Kate Moss era. I want to be as skinny as possible. I get it, right? But we have to change that narrative to we have to fuel and nourish ourselves and partner with our body so that she can be strong to take us through the second half of our life. Okay.
Right.
And because when we undereat, again, another stress on our body. So all of those things, and especially if you start with sleep, are under your control, right? The other big stress too is like fluctuating blood sugar, right? If you're just grabbing things there, it's if you're not having balanced meals and you're eating too frequently, that's also a stress on your body because your blood sugar is bouncing up and down. Your body's having to secrete a lot of insulin, and that is exacerbating a lot of the symptoms that you have. When we start to manage our blood sugar and we start to make our body feel safe by having our meals at particular times so that our body knows what's happening next, she starts to calm down. She starts to feel like, okay, I know you're going to take care of me. I know when I'm going to get fed next. I know when I'm going to go to bed, and she's going to be able to function better. Right. So those are the things that, you really need to know is what is under your control and what can you take action on right away. Right. And every one of those things you can take action on right away. Set yourself a bedtime. And this is what I call like reparenting, right? We all need to learn how to reparent ourselves, and the funny thing, like the reason I sit here before you, kind of the expert at this. Yes, I've been coaching on this for 20 years, but I grew up in a house as a teenager with a single mom who, had been in an abusive marriage with my dad, who was not very strong. And I had to parent myself. So I never had to go through the like having to parent myself because I always did. Right. So the buck always stopped with me. And, like as much as that was, hard at the time, it's also what taught me a lot of discipline and also what taught me the importance of taking care of myself. Right. So for anybody listening, that is huge. If you can start to control those things and take stress off of your body, eating enough. And I know as I say that, women are like, I literally had a call with a client yesterday, a new client, and I was talking about her food diary and that we needed her to eat more. And she started to well up. And she literally was like, you have no idea how scary that is for me. Okay. Because she had been on Ozempic for 5 months and lost 3 pounds.
Wow.
Okay. So she's like, Keera, my problem is not overeating. And I'm like, I get it. I've had clients like you. I have, she's going into a group where there's a client who's, lost 40 pounds over a year. And she was a chiropractor. She was eating once every 48 hours when she came to work with me.
Oh, wow.
So she was not eating enough. And that's why her body was shutting down. But she didn't know how to, increase it because she was like, every time I increased it, I gained weight. But I said to her, just trust me, trust the process. And she's like, I did. I ate more food than I ever have. And, she's like now the same weight that she was in college. Right? So anyway, I want all of you to know that that is possible. It is possible, and your body will respond when she starts to trust you and you start to take impeccable care of yourself. And I really feel that this is what we are meant to do in perimenopause and menopause, is realize that we deserve our own time, love, and attention, right?
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah. And if we can do that, the rocky road is much smoother. I promise you that it is. So the other thing that I want you to know is that stress, especially not eating, especially not getting enough sleep, I want you to understand what that does to your other hormones. Okay. So when we don't get enough sleep, which is one of those major stresses that I'm talking about that you have control over, then we are increasing insulin resistance. Okay. So the biggest hurdle that all women face perimenopause and menopause is insulin resistance, because as estrogen levels start to drop, we have more inflammation, as we spoke about earlier, and we also have more insulin resistance because estrogen is actually very protective and it actually increases insulin sensitivity. Okay. So, and insulin resistance is, what causes diabetes down the road, right? So it's a degree of that. You're on a sliding scale on that. So all women, when they hit menopause, have a 3-time greater risk of diabetes because they're becoming insulin resistant. Sleep, your body can deal with almost any amount of stress if you give it enough sleep. Okay. And it's a whole other, if there's anybody listening who's like, yeah, okay, Keera, that sounds great, but I can't sleep. I have a masterclass for that. I literally spoke 3 hours on a masterclass exactly about that. So we're not going to go into all of the specifics there, but I can tell you that you absolutely have the power in you to also work on your sleep. And the biggest thing is consistency. So, because what happens if you don't sleep well is, come here, sweetheart. What happens if you don't sleep well is that your blood sugar, your glucose levels in the morning are going to be much higher. Okay. And that can happen even with somebody like myself who has very healthy blood sugar levels. So somebody who's already suffering with insulin resistance is going to be that much worse. It really is easy. It is one of these low-lying fruits to really focus on your sleep.
So let me ask you this about sleep, because I know I've studied sleep. I talk about sleep with my clients, but is it true, for those of our listeners who are not sure, that the earlier part of the evening you get better quality sleep than, say, after midnight?
Yes, it is very important. So the most important time for, oh my God, I'm so sorry. The most important time for you to be asleep is between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. So that is the most restorative time. And so when they've actually done sleep studies, there was actually a big podcast on Huberman where they talked about this with the sleep expert. There's actually a study on Huberman where they had a doctor who was talking about this. And one of the huge reasons why it's important to be asleep between 10 and 2, it's not so much how much sleep you get, right? So sleeping from 12 p.m. to 8 a.m. is not the same as sleeping from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., right? It is because you are getting more deep sleep earlier in the sleep cycle, earlier in the evening. So it's not just when you go to bed, but it's that we are ruled by the circadian rhythm. And the circadian rhythm is extremely important. It also plays a massive role when it comes to our hunger and when it comes to our metabolism. Because when we are not abiding by our circadian rhythm, that is when we get leptin resistance, which is actually what happens before insulin resistance. And when we don't get enough sleep, we have higher ghrelin levels and leptin. And ghrelin is our hunger. So if you are losing sleep and you are exhausted, you are always going to struggle with cravings. You are always going to struggle with hunger, right? And leptin is the hormone that tells your body, leptin is the hormone that tells your body that it's had enough, that you have enough fat stores, that you don't need to eat anymore. So when your leptin is, balanced, then what happens is that if you had, more food than you usually do on one day, you'll naturally be less hungry the next day. But I've had clients whose leptin was so out of whack that what actually happened was that they felt hungry, like starving all the time. Right? So that is just one thing that you can reduce your stress, you can manage those hormones, and you can increase insulin sensitivity simply by getting enough sleep.
Yeah, it's amazing. So I know that sleep, when you get to perimenopause and menopause, brings up the question that you hear people or women saying, okay, I have these hot flashes and I just can't sleep at night. So how would you advise them with regards to that?
Yeah, well, the first thing with hot flashes is to balance your blood sugar. So studies have shown that if you're balancing your blood sugar, you are going to have less hot flashes, right? So like I'll be 49 in July and I've never had a hot flash. That's not to say that I won't get one. And also some people are more predisposed to them than others. But you can do yourself a huge favor by focusing on your blood sugar. The other thing is that if you were overweight, that is also going to impact your body's ability to manage, manage its heat controls. And low estrogen is again what causes that. So if you are overweight, just losing weight is also going to reduce the frequency of those hot flashes.
So I know
there's supplements and things of that nature that also help, right? Like there's supplements that can help. I've had a lot of luck with that. And as well, bioidentical hormone therapy is also really fantastic for hot flashes.
Yeah. And what about going back to stress? Do you find that women who are in perimenopause have even more stress than they did in their younger years?
For sure. Absolutely. The truth is, often when women get through menopause, studies have shown that women are their happiest in their 50s, right?
Mm.
And so, but leading up to that, it can be very challenging because it can be a time where there's many things shifting. Many people go through divorce in their 40s. Many people go through career changes. Many people are managing kids that might be, high school students that are even a little bit more stressful, and parents who are ailing at the same time. So when you take all of those kind of like potential life stresses, and then you put on top of that the changes that women are experiencing with their hormones, it is really a perfect storm. So, but the first thing that I want every single woman listening to this to know, even if you're going through all that stuff, you can still thrive. You can still thrive. And, I literally am the poster child for that. Not only have I been a practitioner for 20 years, so I definitely practice what I preach. I am not somebody who just says, oh, just do what I say. But, every single day I'm doing the things. I am always doing more than what my clients are doing, right? So I'm not like, oh, well, you have to do that because no. I'm always doing it. But, as I probably touched on earlier, like I went through selling a house, right? One of life's major stresses, building a house, going through a divorce that was actually in family court, during COVID. And, I stayed on top of my health, and I, was in the best shape of my life. One thing that I didn't do during that whole time, and we're talking like ages, like 44 to 48, right? Right in that peak perimenopause time, was that I did not take myself off of my priority list. Right. And that is the one thing that I could count on. It is the one thing that kept me grounded. It was the one thing that helped me to get through that. So no matter what is going on in your life, the solution is always for you to go look in the mirror, for you to look at yourself and think about what do you control and how can you support your body so that she can in turn support you. Because I promise you, even if you think your body's gone rogue and like she's totally against you, and no matter what you do, you don't feel good, you don't sleep well, you're gaining weight, I promise you, you were just misinterpreting the symptoms. And when you can understand properly what she's saying to you, like, i.e., I need more food, then everything gets ironed out. And her main goal is survival, is to keep you alive, right? So the more that you push against that, the more that you hold back the things that are important for your level. And we're talking about, again, food, right? You absolutely cannot keep yourself in a massive, calorie deficit, fasting for days on end, hardly eating and thinking that that's going to be your solution, because you are pushing your body to a massive stress state. You are impacting your thyroid. Your thyroid is what controls your metabolism. So your thyroid's going to downregulate your metabolism because of the amount of stress, because your body's trying to keep you alive. And that is the most important thing to understand. And, a lot of this is mindset, a lot of the coaching that I do with clients, because the truth is, this is actually kind of funny. As I said, I've been doing this for 2 decades. In 2007, okay, 18 years ago, I was in Elle Canada. So Elle magazine, the Canadian version. So I was asked about metabolism, and I just reread that article because it is still online. I can even give it to you to post in your show notes because it's kind of funny. But literally every single thing in that article that I wrote 18 years ago is exactly the same, right? Lift heavy weights, eat enough protein, make sure that you are balancing your blood sugar. It is all the same. The basics are there, right? And they don't change. And so the important thing is to stop chasing the fad diets, the quick solutions, the things that, you're just going to do for 30 days, and realize that this is really a game of how well you can understand and partner with your body and take care of her. That's the long game. And the reason why I'm still standing here and in, peak physical shape and, again, like scaling my company and managing teenagers and, living on coast to coast and managing all of that is because I take care of myself. I am not a special butterfly. And that's the other really important thing I want you to know, is that oftentimes women make up stories. Well, her life is easy because, and she can do this because, and all of these things that give you an out. And what you are saying to yourself is that you are so special that nobody can understand what you're going through and nobody can help you because it is just unique to you. And I'm here to tell you, right? Although all of us are amazing and wonderful species, right? We all have a purpose on this planet. We are not special little butterflies. We're really not. And so what I want you to know is that you're actually in good company. There's actually a lot of women who feel like you do, and that is what you want to remember, is that there is always a solution.
Yeah. So I know we're out of time today. I really appreciate you here with us, and I would love to be able to put the link to that article in there, because I think it's very important. Metabolism is a question that comes up all of the time that I hear from my clients, and I'm sure you do too. So I would love to get that, and also a link to your masterclass on sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, actually, the sleep one, I'll see if I have an opt-in for it. But
Okay.
if somebody messages me, DMs me on Instagram, I'll definitely be able to get it for you. But I do have a link to my another masterclass that we will give you for the show notes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks,
and my
Keera.
apologies for. I have a puppy. This is my third week, and most of the time I've just been getting away with the skin of my teeth. He's been, because they sleep for like 20 hours, and of course he woke up right before we started. So yeah,
of course.
There's that.
Well, thank you so much.
It's like real life, see? And that's the other thing. I have a puppy. You want to add to stress? I basically just had a new baby and threw total chaos into my life. But I'm still get to the gym and I'm still going to bed. That's why he's crate trained, because I'm absolutely militant about my sleep. So he sleeps from 9 p.m. till 6 a.m. Sometimes 6:30. Yeah. It was like 2 or 3 nights that were kind of tough, but other than that, he's been pretty great. But again, my whole house is like shut down at that time, right? Even with my teenager. Although I have to say, she also doesn't want to bring kids. She doesn't want to bring kids over for sleepovers, because she's like, my mom will kill you if you wake her up. Anyway, yeah. So, well, I hope that was helpful. And
it was.
Most importantly, I just hope that, women, that no matter what is going on in your life, you can turn it around. You have the power to feel incredible. You have the power to take control of your health. You have the power to, literally, education is what is going to get you through this perimenopause, menopause stage for sure. And there's, so much to learn. So, I always say to people, don't gaslight yourself in saying that you know everything, because again, I've been doing this for 2 decades and I learn something new every day. And this is my full-time job, right? So, yeah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your expertise.
Absolutely. It was such a pleasure to connect with you.
Thanks. Bye for now. You have been listening to the Living Life Naturally podcast, where we're on a mission to inform, inspire, and encourage women to live their best life confidently, joyfully, and freely from what's been holding them back. For show notes and free resources, visit holistic-healthandwellness.com. And I'd be delighted if you'd follow us on socials to connect further. If you enjoyed this show, why not share it with your friends? If you found good value, chances are they will too. And of course, a 5-star review on iTunes is always greatly appreciated, as much as I appreciate you listening. So until next time, live life naturally and joyfully.